Hi and welcome back to Gaffy's Grinds. This is video 10 in our Leaving Cert Chemistry organic series on fuels. In our previous video, we discussed the fractional distillation of crude oil and we looked at the different fractions that get created in the fractional distillation process. So as a quick reminder, we have crude oil. Crude oil is a thick, viscous, black liquid. And crude oil is made up, it contains different length hydrocarbons. We separate these different length hydrocarbons using fractional distillation. I'm going to draw a graph now to show the supply and demand of the different fractions of crude oil. The y-axis is going to show the different fractions of the crude oil. The different fractions are gases, petrol, Nafta, diesel, sorry, missed one, kerosene, diesel, fuel oil, and finally residue or bitumen. Now, as we move down the y-axis, so as we move down the y-axis, the length of chain is increasing. That means we have the shortest hydrocarbons at the top and we have the longest hydrocarbons at the bottom. Our x-axis, which starts here, 0, 10, 20, up to 50%, represents what percentage of the original crude oil each fraction is the percentage of the original crude oil, where the supply, which is how much is made, is represented by this red line, and the demand is represented by this blue line. So the x-axis here represents the supply when it's a red line, and it represents the demand when it's a blue line. And a quick reminder that the shortest hydrocarbons are shown at the top here with the gases, and the longest hydrocarbons are shown at the bottom with the bitumen. So this video, or this next bit, is going to show us how these fractions are not created in equal proportions. Okay, so I'm now going to draw the relative supplies of each of these fractions. It is clear from the graph that the gases, the petrol, the naphtha, and the kerosene are in short supply. The diesel is also in short supply. The fuel oil and the bitumen are in a much higher supply. So it is clear that the fuel oil has the highest supply out of all of the fractions, while the gases have the lowest supply out of all the fractions. You can see that petrol, naphtha, kerosene, and diesel oil all have a similar supply. The graph shows how there is a higher demand or need for gases than there is a supply. Therefore, this shows us that there are not enough gases to meet our needs. There is a far higher demand for petrol than we actually get supplied. This means that we use petrol far more than we actually are able to get from crude oil. For kerosene and naphtha, you can see that there is a higher supply than a higher demand than we actually get supplied. Like previously, there is a bigger demand for diesel than we actually get supplied. This shows how there is not enough naphtha, kerosene, and diesel after fractional distillation of crude oil in order to meet our needs. Fuel oil has a much lower demand compared to what is actually supplied in crude oil. This means that once all of the demand for fuel oil has been met, we will be met with surplus fuel oil, which has absolutely no use. And just like fuel oil, there is a smaller demand for residue and bitumen than is actually supplied. Again, this means that once we have met the demand, there is extra leftover residue and fuel oil than is required. So if we don't do something with the leftover fuel oil and the leftover residue, then they will both go to waste. So we need to do something to figure out or to figure out a way in which we can use the excess fuel oil and the excess residue. And we also need to find a way in that we can meet or basically satisfy the demand, even though it outweighs the supply of the fractions at the top here that are shown on the graph. So to summarize, both fuel oil and bitumen have a high supply and a low demand. Meanwhile, the diesel, kerosene, the naphtha, the petrol, and the gases have a low supply and a high demand. Why is this? Well, it's related to their uses. So gases are mainly used for cooking, heating. And these are things which need to be done every day by millions, maybe even billions of people around the world. So we need gas, we need to use gases for cooking, and we need to use gases for heating. Millions and billions of people every day need to use this. Petrol mostly is used in cars. And again, we're talking about billions of people, billions of cars on the road every single day. Nafta, Nafta is a feedstock for chemicals and cosmetics. Again, these are products that people use on a daily basis. they need to be produced in very high supply. Kerosene is mainly used for heating, so home heating oil is kerosene, and jet fuel. There is a high demand for jet fuel because a lot of people use planes, a lot of people fly. So again, to meet the demand of the people who want the amount of people who want to fly, this takes a lot of kerosene to fly enough planes to get people around the globe. Diesel is another transport fuel. So lorries, buses, cars, these again are used every day on the road. So they need to be, there is a high demand to keep these things working every day. So this gives us one major problem, and that is that there are not enough hydrocarbons, not enough short-chain hydrocarbons in crude oil. As scientists, we've got to solve that problem. All right, it's time to do some practice now. So we're going to pause the video to answer the questions. If you'd like to take that down, I'm just going to leave that screen there for you to pause. If you want to take that down, I'll leave it so you can pause it and take down the video. Okay, so moving on to the questions. They are questions 1 to 10. So what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video and I want you to try them questions for me now. Again, as I always say, there is no point in watching this video if you're not going to try the exercises. So pause the video and do the questions now. Okay, so you should be watching the video now if you have completed those 10 questions. The answers are coming up now. Here they are. Apologies. Here are the answers. So pause the video and make any corrections that you require. Okay, so again, you should only be watching the video now if you have done the questions and made your correction. Okay, so well done if you got those correct. This video has been about the supply and demand of the different fractions in crude oil. So just a quick recap, we learned that the fractions in crude oil aren't available in equal measures. So they don't come in equal proportions. And the supply of the shorter chain hydrocarbons does not meet the demand. Whereas the supply of the longer chain hydrocarbons completely outweighs the demand. So the problem that we've created here is that there are not enough short-chained hydrocarbons in the fractions from crude oil. In the next lesson, we're going to learn about one of the issues with that. Hopefully, if you remember, I'm just going to flick back up to the graph. The highest demand is for petrol. So in the next lesson, we're going to be looking at petrol. And we're going to be looking at how might we go about solving this issue, that the demand is way higher than the supply. So I will see you in the next video.